Welcome, everybody. This is a Analytics in the Supply Chain panel discussion. Pleased to have a number of analytics professionals on the call with us. This call is being recorded, so if you do happen to have to drop off early or know someone who may find this conversation useful, just know that we are recording this conversation, and we'll get this out to the attendees, the link out to the attendees afterwards. So my name is Mark Kosfeld. I'm the director of the Supply Chain Management Institute here at UWM. We've done quite a bit of work over the past year on analytics and hosting some analytics trainings, and this is our first analytics panel discussion. Pleased to have 6 panelists to share their thoughts on analytics with you. And so I'll start off by just having each one of the panelists introduce themselves. Take a minute if you can introduce yourself, and then also tell us about the company that you work for. So Tom, we'll start with you.
Okay, good morning. Tom DeBryan, Vice President of Global Operations for Brady Corporation, which is headquartered here in Milwaukee, global company. A fairly diverse business, but the principal part of our business is the design, development, and manufacture of printers, software, and materials used for really demanding labeling applications in healthcare and industry verticals across the board.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Tim, you're next.
Hi, Tim Johnson. I work for Charter Steel. I lead demand planning there, and I also shepherd our SIOP process. Charter Steel is a 4th-generation family-owned steel manufacturing company specializing in high-quality steel coil and bar applications. A lot of our product goes into automotive, as well as all different types of industry.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Kellen, you're next.
Hi, I'm Callan Gass, and I work at Northwestern Mutual. I am a data scientist there, and Northwestern Mutual focuses on financial planning as well as life insurance, and that is the side that I work on with the underwriting process for life insurance.
Great. Thank you. Eric, you're next.
Hi, my name is Eric. So I work at Brady Corporation. So I work with Tom pretty closely. So then I'm leading a team of data scientists here at Brady. So I got hired by Brady in the year of 2021. I think the goal is to build a team of data scientists and further transition the company with more data and analytics involved in the decision making. So nice to be here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Yeah, thank you for joining us, Eric. Bradley, you're next.
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Bradley. I'm a category analyst at Briggs & Stratton. I'm on our supply chain analytics team. Briggs & Stratton was founded in 1908. We're headquarters in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. We produce a diverse selection of power solutions, from our main product of engines for outdoor power equipment to lithium-ion batteries and standby generators.
Excellent. Thank you, Bradley. And Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Glowinska from Rockwell Automation. So we are a global leader in industrial automation and digital transformation. And I lead a global team of data analysts, data engineers, and data scientists in the supply chain area.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourself. For those of you on the line, I've invited Tom DeBryan from Brady Corp, who acts often as the customer of the analytics analyses that are put together at Brady Corp. So he provides that perspective of the executive that many of the analytics teams are presenting to, as well as on the call, we've got a number of analytics professionals providing their insight in this panel discussion. So the next thing I'll ask each of the panelists to do is please describe how your team is organized, so we get an understanding of what your team structure looks like. And I'll mix up the order as I ask our panelists. But I will start with Tom again on this one. If you can let us know how your team is organized, Tom.
Yeah, sure. Well, as Eric mentioned, we have built out or stood up in the last 3 or so years a formal data science team that is available for use across the enterprise. Those resources are located in Milwaukee. In addition to Eric's capabilities and what he's done there, and so I would consider that to be a bit of a shared service, but certainly there, as you look across the enterprise, there's people across the globe that are getting more and more acclimated to the use of various tools and analytic platforms. We've been using various visualization and business intelligence tools for many years across the enterprise to more efficiently gather information and distill insights out of it. So I would say we've been it's just the recent work we've done with Eric that's been quite formalized. Other than that, we've made diverse use of tools across the enterprise for a long time. The focus is really, I would say, at this point on building people and experimenting and learning, and then scaling from there.
Great. Susan, you talk about how your analytics team is organized.
Yeah, so at Rockwell, we have several teams. We're a big company, and that tends to be the way it is. But we also treat data analytics in general as a shared service. So we have some dedicated data scientists for Rockwell. And then we have in each of our segments a data analyst team. So if I take my area, for example, I have people who do data analysis, which is more of the metrics. It's more using Power BI. Other we have other tools. We have data engineers on our team. We have data scientists on our team. And that's pretty typical for each of the business segments within Rockwell. And we are global. So the sun follows the data team. We have people from Shanghai to the US, and that you get some advantages out of that, but it's definitely has some challenges as well. So far this approach is working for us. And we are able to utilize each other's resources, so there aren't a lot of strict boundaries. When someone has info in one area that maybe another group doesn't, we pull them in and have them work on the projects that are needed.
All right. Thank you, Susan. Kellen, if you can tell us how your team is organized at Northwestern Mutual.
Yeah, so at Northwestern Mutual, I'm in a larger department called Core Data Analytics, which does data analysis and science across both the field and user experience. And then more specifically, my department is much more the internal workings and then future of underwriting, so developing the underwriting process. And within that team, I work on a team of 4 data scientists who regularly partner with 2 or 3 data engineers and 1 or 2 people in the actuarial department as business partners. But then because we're all kind of in the same umbrella under the data category, there is a lot of cross collaboration in terms of sharing tools and experience that we have with other teams who are just targeting different problems.
Excellent. Thank you. Bradley, you're next.
Yeah, thank you. So I work on our supply chain analytics team. We're housed within our supply chain division. I work on a team of analysts. We report to our manager of analytics, and then he directly reports to our senior vice president of supply chain. That gives us a really good opportunity to have direct contact with leadership and assist in providing data and to make critical decisions for them.
Thank you. Eric, if you can talk about how your analytics team is organized at Brady.
Sure. Yeah. So I built a team with 4 team members. So then, as Tom just mentioned, this is a shared service, and then we are taking project from a different area. For example, like the supply chain pricing and customer service. So this team is really focusing on building AI machine learning models, and then the data analytics team. So we do have a dedicated team across different functions in different business unit or for example, sales or marketing. So they focus on building those metrics or reports through different visualization tools. So then the different teams and sharing the results and sharing data. So we came from different perspectives, and then we align with each other through the communication. So then that's how we eventually team up together to present the result to the executives together. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. And Tim.
Thanks. Yeah, my team is focused primarily on time series modeling and predictive analytics within the supply chain space. We sit as part of a larger supply chain planning team. And then as a sub company of Charter Manufacturing, there's also a corporate level BI and data science teams that we work closely with. Those are both shared services across all of the Charter Manufacturing companies.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. One thing that I didn't mention at the beginning, if you would like to submit questions of our panelists, you can use the Q&A button that should be located towards the bottom of your Zoom window. So feel free to submit the questions as you think of them. We have about half of the meeting for prepared questions, and then half of the meeting towards the end for any questions that come in from the audience. So we certainly have time to address those. So as you think of them, go ahead and use that Q&A button on your Zoom window. The next question I have for, this will be for our analytics professionals. How have the analytics tools and methods that your team uses changed over time? And we'll start with Bradley.
Yeah, so I don't have quite as much experience as a lot of the people in this panel, but in my brief career, I've been in 2 different industries. I was in banking for 2 years, and now I switched over to more of a supply chain role. And one thing I've seen across both of those where it's similar is that the tools are only as good as you can see with your user adoption and what you get into the tool. A lot of times that can be hard to get adoption to for everybody to buy in, because sometimes that can take longer to work through. It's a new task, and it can be strenuous to some of the users. But once it's in place, it usually ends up being a time saver, and it can be really good for your analytics department. We can get many more insights and just be better overall, provide better data, and provide better input to leadership.
Great. Thank you. Same question to you, Eric. How have the tools that you use in your team changed over the years?
Okay, so we use different analytics tools based upon different goals and project and scopes, right? For example, for any predictive models that as long as the time series is involved, so then we may use for example, some meta, profit, and then the different transformer, neural network models. So that will be sufficient enough to deliver the good results. And then for any classification problems and projects, and then we may just try to use some tree models. That will be appropriate. But for some marketing projects, and then some projects that more qualitative input is involved, so then we may just use some clustering models and then some A/B tests, and then to test statistical significance among the different test scenarios. So I would say it's really dependent on the scope and project and the goal we want to achieve.
Okay, thank you. Same question for you, Tim.
Yeah, I think I'm going to attack this kind of in two phases. So I've only been with Charter Steel for about 10 months, and I can say that over the last year-ish, the biggest transformation for us is going from, anecdotal type forecasting within our supply chain. This is how it's always happened. This is how we think it's going to happen again, to a much more analytic based forecasting approach. So that's going in something as simple as running a trend line, all the way up to more complicated time series modeling. From a more industry career perspective, how I've seen things change, I can remember 10 years ago having conversations around tool selection, and people being weary of open source technology, right? So wanting to go with companies like SAS because they know they have these teams of PhDs that are vetting all of these models that they're deploying to their customers. And I would say over the last 10 years, there's been a huge shift to more reliance on open source and free technology, whether that's R or Python. Those tools have now been vetted enough over the last 10, 15 years that anybody's comfortable using them in a setting where you don't need to be spending thousands of dollars a year to get the same type of technology, that if you have the knowledge, you can go in and build just as robust models for virtually free.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Susan, how have you seen your analytics tools that you use at Rockwell change over time?
Well, great points, Tim, about open source. I've also seen that more readily adopted. So going back, way back, I mean, we used to do predominantly analytics in Excel and Access databases. And when we talked about more advanced things like, oh, are we going to do multiple linear regression or time series? That was predominantly the area for the black belts. And it was done in Minitab in Excel, and the data was all extracted manually. And that's the other change that I've seen. You know, the data used to be very decentralized. And so you would go to a SQL database to get some info here and SAP to get some info there. And then you would merge that all together in Excel. And now, you know, we have Data Lake. We have Power BI for our visualizations. And even now, Power BI will allow you to do regression. We've vetted that out a bit, at least on a small scale. We are in agreement that it can do some basic regression for you in that tool. We still have Minitab for some hardcore black belt work, but we also apply a lot of the no-code, low-code tools like Power Apps, Power Automate, and that's another big change that I've seen. Whereas we used to gather data manually and then shove it in Excel, now we can implement a Power App. We can get data from a lot of people, put it in a SharePoint, point a Power BI at it. So for me, I think the ease of the tools which we have today makes life a lot easier, and then the automation of data that we have today and Data Lake has just made a huge impact. And the other thing that I've noticed is these things used to just be black belts. You had to really know your stuff, but now we have a much broader citizen level, people on my team, but even people outside of my team that are working on this kind of stuff. Whereas in the past, you would have had to have somebody who knew how to code or maybe do it in SAP, and now they can work much easier on creating data products for themselves.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it. Interesting how centralizing that data gives you opens up some new tools and some new options that maybe didn't exist before. Callan, how about you?
Yeah, so the project that I'm working on right now has been developing for about the last 3 years. And since then, I think we've gone through 6 or 7 different pipeline reconfigurations as we find new tools. And one of the advantages of being on a project that's developing is as we unlock new things or discover new ways to pinpoint our business question, we can really curate what we want our pipeline to look like. And this has been mentioned before, but we've really been adopting open source packages as well. and how we configure that. Just in the last year, we've added both Hydra and MLflow to our pipeline configuration, which allows us to really curate what we want to see and iterate through models really quickly and keep track of that to maintain that reproducibility. And one of the things that I've noticed changing recently is how easily all of those packages fit together. When we redo our pipelines, it used to take 3 or 4 weeks of just standstill, all hands on deck, putting this code together. But in our most recent one, we were able to get an up and running Hydra pipeline in just a couple of weeks, and we're iterating through models so much quicker now, and everything just fits together so easily, like a nice little puzzle. So that's definitely improved.
Yeah, it sounds like the tools have improved recently, and like you said, that they work together a lot better than they used to in the past. Great. Yeah, thank you for all of you for sharing your perspective on that. Tom, slightly different question for you. How has your interaction with your analytics team changed over the years?
Well, I would say when Eric first came to Brady and started to build out a team, you know, I was really had a lot of interest and a lot of energy in terms of understanding what he could potentially do in terms of proving the accuracy of our time series modeling related to demand forecasting. And so Eric and I worked collaboratively. We did a number of different studies there, running different transformer models against the existing models that we have within our ERP system. We run on SAP. Interestingly enough, I mean, the story may not be what you want to hear, but I would say the conclusion we came to when we looked at the performance of the various models was that we were just going to continue to use the existing capabilities we had within our ERP system, because it was just a tighter controlled solution. Otherwise, we would have had to extract consumption data from SAP, move it into a model, create a demand forecast going forward, and then load it back into our ERP. So we opted in that particular case. We saw some cases where it could perform better. We saw some cases where it would perform not as well. The net of it is we opted not to make any sweeping modifications. The one thing that we did do in conjunction with working with Eric's team was we began to automate the process that we use for outlier detection, and took that away from being something discretionary that people would use their own do their own interpretation onto something that's much more hands-off and automated for us. You know, more broadly, I would say Eric's team, and he can speak to it better than I can, I think we've made more use of Eric's team outside of supply chain, and really more in the categories of looking at pricing considerations and drawing insights of how elastic or inelastic different pricing models can be. We've used it a fair amount, or his team a fair amount, from an e-com perspective to look at our website platforms and figuring out how to more appropriately target messaging to desired customers and so forth. But those we continue to do a lot of stuff around analytics and supply chain. I'm just not quite sure it rises to the level of you know, what we might consider to be, you know, data science. We do, as I mentioned at the outset, we do a lot with BI tools. We've done a lot in the last year or so with creating standards around how we do inventory segmentation, safety stock policy assignment, the outlier detection I mentioned, and then we're using more automation just to perform those tasks for us, segmentation, for example, and to audit conformance across the globe as to whether or not processes are running basically within prescribed boundaries. We've also stepped into the space of doing more with analytics and algorithm-based tools for transportation planning, and things in that realm. So those would be some comments I would offer.
All right. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for sharing, and even outside of the supply chain department, how analytics is being used across the company. Tom, we'll stay with you on this next question. If you can describe a extremely beneficial analysis that your analytics team has completed, and let us know, well, what made it so impactful.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I probably wove that in, I guess, to my last comment. I would say probably, and I think Eric can maybe comment a little bit more on the impactful side, but certainly some of the stuff his team has been able to do in terms of drawing out insights related to pricing, and some of the stuff we've done on the e-com side. Eric, what would you add to that?
Yeah, so some of the projects I would consider was like the most beneficial for the companies is the following, right? So the pricing projects, as we know, during the previous year, so then we have gone through, high inflation, the supply chain issues, and then there is definitely instability in the US economy. And then people are not very sure about whether we should raise our price, and then what it was a rate we should raise our price to. So then at that moment, we decide to use the data analytics to estimate, for example, the price elasticity through a time series analysis to figure it out whether or not we're dealing with the most price elastic customers in the world. And then building that, and then we can build the simulations and what if analysis to see if we raise the price to a certain level, and then how much would that affect our unit sales. And as you may know, for Brady, we're not only selling the printers, we are selling a kit of printers, and then we are also selling the labels that fit in those printers. So it will be a more complex system. So you cannot just pull the trigger for printers that not affecting the other input to the printer. So then we will consider printers and kits and the labels, the consumables to the printers as a whole system. And then we're put triggers on pricing and see how much that price will affect printers and kit and labels and consumables as a whole. So then we can estimate how much would it affect our financial performance together. So then we can make the decision whether or not we even raise our price, or even we keep our price stable, or sometimes we have to reduce our price. So I think we have done that before, and then through our test, and then we work with marketing, we work with the channel team, and we found a really significant financial impact to the company, to Brady. So then that's something that I'm really proud of.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Let me ask the other panelists, because I think you bring up a good point with the inflation that we've seen recently. Have you seen an increase in pricing analyses that you've been doing recently due to the high inflation that we've seen? And feel free to jump in here. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, pricing has been something that we've been very sensitive to definitely over the last year. There's been a higher focus on that for us. I don't know if it's necessarily, I would say it's partially related to high inflation that we're seeing, but it also goes back to us understanding better what our customer is. And as we move more to an analytics mindset and want to be more data driven in our decision making, we want to know what the price elasticity is for certain customers and how we fit in the market, and where can we take price and not lose share versus where will we take, if we take price, where we will lose share, right? As the steel producer, we are very sensitive to also keeping our mill full, because it's a very capital intensive process to keep those assets. You want them running all the time. So knowing what our customers' price sensitivity is huge for us, to make sure that we're maximizing our profit potential and at the same time filling our mill.
Yeah, makes sense. Any of the other panelists want to comment on any kind of pricing analyses? All right. We'll move on to the next question for our analytics professionals. Please describe a challenging business problem that you worked on. What kind of analytics tools and methods did you use? And then thinking about the project, maybe what would you do differently next time, now that you know what you know with that project? And Callan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so recently one of our first models went into development and it involves replacing a decision that was currently made by an older system. And so we developed an analytic metric that helped display what was changing and what was staying the same in a very small and just quaint manner. And one of the things that helped with that was change management. So everything that stayed the same was what made change management really simple. That's what we passed along, and we were able to say, okay, not this much is changing. The process is still very similar. But then where things did change, that's where we were able to point to the benefit and then the monetary compensation that was coming in with that. So we didn't develop the tool until about halfway through. We didn't think about it at the time, but starting those communications with this really simple grid, it was just a grid with some numbers that we shared along, really increased the change management and the process of, it's not the super scary thing that we're implementing. It's quite simple, like these are the numbers, and it gave a visual instead of just talking to something. And so in the future, definitely starting that communication sooner, because we also learned a lot about what concerns were from the other side of things, because when you're so deep into the modeling process, you don't necessarily see that. So we were able to adapt our process as well.
Yeah, very good point about change management, when especially you're coming out with something new, to help them see that connection between, okay, these are the things that are staying the same, and feel confident that that will be the same tomorrow, and highlighting those things that are changing for them. So yes, thanks for sharing. Bradley, same question for you. If you could talk about a challenging business problem, share some of the analytic tools and methods that you used.
Yeah, for sure. So mine actually kind of relates to pricing a little bit. I was just waiting to get to it, but a lot of what we do on our analytics team is verifying commodity-based pricing. Contracts that we have with our suppliers. Being in the supply chain, we focus more on the supplier end of it. And one of the projects that I wanted to discuss was we were asked to make sure we were capturing the price decreases from our suppliers, that we were saying that we're at the same rate that we were seeing with our customers. So using Power BI, Domo, we were able to work through getting pricing for over 20 models that had an average of 500 parts. These are zero-turn lawnmowers, so it's there's a lot of parts in them, and it was over a long time frame. So we did run into quite a few issues with trying to get that completed. And the real thing that I learned from it was trying to work across departments. Our leadership did a great job of connecting us after we worked with our manager, and we're able to get to that solution. But there are people in different departments who work with different data sources and have a deeper knowledge of areas than we do. Specifically within our SAP ERP system, we were able to work with our finance team and our sales team, and they were able to get us the data we needed. So in the future, I mean, I think we'll be able to work a little more, find the individuals we need a little easier, and hopefully get to a solution a little earlier.
Yeah, making those connections is important, in knowing who you're impacting, not only within your own department, but across other departments in the company. Susan, same question for you. You can talk about a business problem that you attacked with analytics and share some of the tools and methods that you used with it.
Yeah, so this one's a little bit of an older project, but still in use. We did a cost of quality analysis where we looked at all of our manufacturing costs. So we were looking at scrap, we were looking at warranty, we looked at everything that kind of adds to the bottom line to see where we could start reducing some of those costs. Were there areas we could get in and reduce, like warranty? And it was a lot of data, and it was earlier in our data journey where we were able to bring the data together. And it was the first time we had ever really brought together that much data from various sources. And we used Power BI modeling for that. We used some SQL database from that. The technology wasn't really that big of a factor in there. But what I did find, and what I would do different next time, is there was a lot of change management. So I'll echo what Callan said. A lot of change management. We did some, we could have done more. But the other thing that I should have done more of was education. A lot of our consumers of this we're still early in the journey of learning to use these kind of tools. And they also didn't really understand like the filtering of the data, what was included, what's not included. So now it's more of a standard practice for us as we create this kind of analysis to document how is this filtered, what's in, what's out. Those were some important lessons we learned from that project to make things go easier for folks.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Susan. Tim, I want to circle back to you. I know you talked about pricing. Did you have another project you'd like to share? Various tools, methods?
Yeah. So I think best place to start is like with the business problem, right? And our business problem was, how are we identifying gaps or opportunities to our plan as part of our SIOP process earlier? So previously, we had a very myopic view of our business, only looking a month to 4 months ahead. That's as wide as our order window is. So our customers can't place orders more than 4 months ahead. We really didn't look beyond that. But as we think about planning our full year, we needed to start looking beyond that to understand, are we going to make our business plan? Are we not going to make our business plan? Are we going to run into capacity issues because we're going to blow our business plan out of the water? And then what are the levers that we can pull with enough time to actually pull the levers, right? If you're too close to the accident, you can't put the brakes on, or vice versa. So that gets back to a lot of the time series modeling that we have put together, using just very basic ARIMA modeling in R to build out a 24-month forecast. It's something that we can then take into our SIOP process to high level identify gaps and opportunities to our plan. And that lets us start pulling those different levers, those business levers, to help us understand, do we need to think about taking price, right? Getting back to that price conversation. If we're going to blow our plan out of the water, well, let's increase price and run up our profitability. If we're not going to make plan, do we give price back to the customer? Can we use that to go gain share with some of our customers, or enter new markets based on our current capacity availability? So it's something as simple as finding a way to look further ahead, and then leading that into your holistic supply chain planning process to be able to have very informed, data-driven conversations on what's best for our business long term, and being less myopic overall in how we do our planning.
Sure. And I know you had mentioned before about kind of the transition to more of a data-driven type of decision-making model, trusting the data, relying more on the data to help make those decisions versus maybe what was being used in the past, maybe gut feel, or like you said, I think just doing it the way we've always done it for however many years. So yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm going to transition now to some questions from the audience. We did receive one ahead of time, so we'll start with that one. And then I see that there's one in the Q&A currently, and we'll get to that one next. So the one we received ahead of time, how do you implement artificial intelligence into your work routines? And are there any ethical challenges using AI in supply chain and or analytics? So I'll open it up to any of the panelists that would like to jump in and share their thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I'll make a few comments. I mean, obviously ever since last summer, the summer of 2023, generative AI has obviously become, hold on, am I there? AI has become an increasing talking point, I would say, within the corporation. We are, actively running a variety of different use cases or pilots in different use cases, including selling efficiency, customer operations, technical support, coding, in the development of products. So we're running a variety of different pilots concurrently. We're trying to learn rapidly from them and figure out what continued deployment might look like. We're looking to make additional investments in people to help us understand what strategy might look like and how we effectively deploy it. But I think everybody needs to remember, you know, we weren't conversationally talking about artificial intelligence the way we are now, even a half a year ago, or very minimally outside of probably, you know, the tech community out in different parts of the country and world. So a fairly nascent technology, but with very, very increasingly evident to us that could have some very, very powerful transformational aspects to it. Yeah, there was a related question, I guess, about ethical challenges. You know, yeah, I think society will wrestle with all of that for a while. I mean, certainly one of them is at least, I don't know if it's ethical, but a concern a company would have would be IP or our data or our information being loaded into the domain of some kind of a model that takes that information out of our purview, and or being responsible for any infringement on information that's provided to a model, or the use of anything that would come back out of the backside of a model. So there's sensitivity to that. You know, I think it probably starts with policy and education, and then it evolves from there. So a couple of comments from my side.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Tom. Does anybody else want to jump in on that one and share their thoughts?
I can share it more from an analytics side. So in terms of actually applying it, we have an internal tool called NMGPT, which is just basically a similar generative AI model that we're allowed to use in our internal workings. And that's become very useful in when you get a really weird error in a code that you can't understand. There's obviously, we have certain proprietaries, we can't copy our code into it itself, but when you get some indexing error that doesn't make sense, it kind of saves a few steps of digging through Stack Overflow websites when it can just pop up an answer there. But with that being said, there have been a few times where the answers have not been correct. And when it throws another error, that's a really easy one to check. But if you extrapolate that to other questions or more theoretical questions that you ask, like it definitely crosses, or it can get into a fuzzy line there. So having an understanding of the code that it's spitting out is so critical. Like you can't just copy and paste it and expect it to work. You still have to understand the workings of it. And so that's been an ethical challenge that we've discovered pretty quickly on our team.
I'll have to try that myself. I'm definitely a scroll through Stack Overflow type of person when I get an error. So hearing that that's appears to be quicker and simpler in a ChatGPT kind of format, I think I may try that.
Yeah, can I add some points here?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, so how we are using the artificial intelligence in our work. So then first of all, we definitely use the Copilot to help the developers to code, right? So then it's really fast. And then like what Callum mentioned, there will be some hallucinations, right? So then it's causing some problems, but generally speaking, it is improving the productivity of the developers. And number two is we also use artificial intelligence to summarize different articles, and it could be technical, could be not technical, or academia articles, so then people can understand the main idea of those articles quickly. So then that's another way to improve the productivity. And in terms of the challenges, right? So then I think we're in a process of democratizing the data usage and the data-driven, those kind of approach. However, this AI, artificial intelligence, somewhat creates some barrier for, you know, a general public to use AI, to better use AI. I think the way how to solve that kind of issue is education. For example, at Brady, we have an AI boot camp to sort of educate all Brady employees to know more about, for example, math and stats, and then to know more about the different algorithms, to know more about AI, for them to use it. Before you use anything, you need to get familiar with that tool you'll be using. So then I think that's the first step. And then second step is to to avoid any bias or unfairness because of using AI either against a different group of people, either, against the human beings. So then that's something that we need to keep transparent in using AI to make sure that no one is really left behind because of the AI causing the transition to the society, to the company.
Great. Yeah, I like the idea of an AI boot camp. And I think you said that that's not just for the analytics team, it's for everyone in the company to understand what AI is and the, maybe some of the pitfalls with it, and become more educated on it. So
Yep.
I like that direction within the company. I see we have a couple questions in the Q&A. We'll jump to the first one that says, what kind of inventory management system is in place at your company? For example, first in, first out. How is that accounted for, or how is that affecting analytics and forecasting? I'll open that up to anybody in the panel that wants to address that one.
Well, I think I spoke to it a little bit earlier. I mean, we made a foray into it to see if we would make any choice changes with respect to the time series modeling that we used, and opted not to do so. We found some select areas where we could apply some tools that we haven't previously used, but in general, we have stayed the course using the same time series modeling that we've always done. Short answer.
Any other thoughts on that one? Anyone want to touch on any type of inventory management? Maybe it's segmented by product. Are there certain products that are FIFO, and then there's other products that are inventory is managed in a different way?
I mean, we manage inventory, I think, uniquely because we're very much almost an engineer to order. Our customers are ordering specific chemistries that need to get rolled, or melted and rolled. But with that, we do have a chem match process, so almost like a multi-echelon inventory optimization piece where we're melting billets, and then those billets sit in inventory. So for those that don't know this, the steel business, you melt a billet, it's a 5-inch by 5-inch, 35-foot steel bar at a specific chemistry that sits in inventory, and then it gets rolled into a steel coil. So we can melt billets ahead of when we roll them, creates different echelons of inventory. So that is one area that we are actually leveraging AI as part of our melt scheduling process to build inventory appropriately. But we don't have a specific kind of like first in, first out policy because so much of what we do is specific to our customers' chemistry order.
Would be right to say that it's more of an engineer to order type of process?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think another factor that weighs on that a bit is the supply chain issues we've had the last 3-4 years has maybe caused us to stray from doing strictly first in, first out or inventory management to, for a while, it was, hey, what can we build with the components that we have? So I think people are reevaluating their inventory as we recover from the supply chain problems.
Yeah, very good point. I know we've had a number of conversations where things that were hot before the pandemic, like just in time, are being reevaluated since the pandemic. Maybe I do need to hold a little more inventory than what we were doing before the pandemic, what just in time called for. so we don't get caught like we did over the last couple of years. So great. Thank you for all of your responses to that one. I see we have a second question, and if you do have additional questions from the audience, feel free to get those into the Q&A. We have about 10 minutes remaining for this discussion. The second question is, what are some challenges you would like solved with analytics in the near term? So I'll
I
let
can
you
take this one.
go ahead, Bradley.
Yeah, so we're working on projects right now, kind of similar to the difficult project I mentioned before. Our prices tend to change from our suppliers quite frequently, whether it's commodity-based pricing or changing suppliers. With the amount of parts we have, we've been trying to work on rolling up pricing from a BOM level up to the main model level. So being able to pick a point in time and saying this is the price of the model. Obviously, we know the price of the model and the price it would cost us to buy the subsequent parts, but trying to roll that up and using tools like Power BI and Domo to build out a system where end users can look and say, hey, this is my whole rolled up BOM. This is the whole pricing, and I can be 100% confident in that. And I think using our analytic tools will be something that we'll be working towards with that one.
Is that something that you're working on for like a new product development, or are these existing products where they're looking at changing components of the bill of materials?
Yeah, I would say both. We're trying to get an idea of both where we stand with our with existing products to make it more end user friendly. Obviously, we can in our analytics team, that's something we can find, but having it so our end user can say, hey, this is what as a category manager or somebody else is looking for. We're trying to find ways to make it more accessible to them and easier to access. So I'd say in new product development, we're also looking at that, but also with our existing products as well.
Okay. Any other thoughts from anybody else on the panel? Something you'd like solved with analytics in the near term?
Yeah, I can speak to one of the projects that we have in flight right now. So we're really focused on predictive maintenance and have started ingesting as much data as we can from our motors, whether that's current speed, torque currently. Shout out to our friends down the road at Rockwell, Susan. We're using temperature, vibration, oil sensors to collect as much data as we can on all of our motors. A steel mill is a very hostile environment and things break all the time. So having a good idea of when things may break is going to be key for us in planning our maintenance. Currently, all that data that we're ingesting is using ML models to really just do anomaly detection. And it's going to require us to build out much larger, like we're making large data sets now. It's going to require even larger data sets because all of those all of that data that we're pulling in is unique to the grade, right? So a higher grade of steel is going to require more current, higher speeds, depending on the diameter and size. So huge data sets that's going to take us a while to build out. The key there, though, is starting with something that's anomaly detection and saying, oh, this is operating outside of its normal parameters, and then taking that over time and building that into like survival analysis models to say, to go from, oh, this is not functioning as normal to, oh, this is high probability of failure within X weeks. Let's see where in the schedule we can do preventative maintenance to prevent downtime overall. If we know we're going to be shutting something down and we've got a piece of equipment that's in high probable failure status, then let's take care of that while we're not stopping production.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Tim. You see, we have another question we'll get to in the Q&A. This one says, do you think your organization's focus is more on prescriptive versus predictive analytics? Or do you think the organization has a more balanced approach?
I'll start. I think that there's room for all analytics. I don't think the rudimentary metrics are going away anytime soon. So when we think back even to descriptive kind of stuff, but we are doing predictive already. We are doing some prescriptive and kind of moving into that area. So I think that overall we have a balanced approach. And like I said, I don't foresee us being heavily on one end or the other, as I think that we need all of the kind of analytics in order to answer various business questions within our organization.
Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Would you say that the decision on which type of analytics to use, whether this requires a prescriptive model or a predictive model, is coming more from the analytics team, or do you find that the requester, whatever department or organization within Rockwell that is asking for and how they frame the problem or how they bring the problem to your team?
I think it's, for me, a little bit of both. I know people are very excited about generative AI and about prescriptive, but what I encourage my team to do is ask what are we trying to answer, or what problem are we trying to solve? And then we will often provide feedback about, hey, here is a good approach. And sometimes it might just be, I need to track how many of these things we're doing. And it's pretty simplistic, and sometimes it's not. So for us, it's a little bit of both, but probably more weighted in the my team provides input.
Okay. Anybody else on the panel want to share their thoughts on prescriptive versus predictive analytics in their department? Okay. All right. Susan, thank you for sharing. I see we are just about out of time. We've got 2 minutes to 11. Thank you to all the panelists. Thank you to Tom, Eric, Susan, Callan, Bradley, and Tim for taking an hour to share thoughts with everybody here on the line. I appreciate the discussion, appreciate your openness and willingness to spend this hour with us. Like I did say at the beginning, this was being recorded. I will get the link out to all of the attendees once that's generated for us. And then in the chat, if you wouldn't mind opening your chat, you'll find that button at the bottom of your Zoom. I did put a quick survey together, so if you wouldn't mind taking the last 2 minutes here, click on that link, complete that anonymous survey. I appreciate the feedback on what you thought of the session,